Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Story of a Startup. I have someone very special here today, Rachel Martin. Rachel is an amazing designer and someone who has Mindful and Good, which helps entrepreneurs and those starting their business or those who have businesses that are looking to really get great brand expression or create brands, take it to the next level. And Rachel and I know each other through Sustain Charlotte and the Innovation Barn. And I'm so grateful, Rachel, that you reached out to me after the talk about sustainable entrepreneurs and said, hey, what is your plan for Flora Farm? Do you have a brand? And I was like, no, we don't have anything. We're starting out. And I know that my wife, Sarah Catherine, and I, and Delane Clark, our other business partner, have just been really blown away by all the work that you've done.
Thank you. No, it was a pleasure. Thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure working with you. Yeah, when I saw your talk, I was just so inspired of everything that you have done in the past and the trials and tribulations of businesses that you've launched and your story of being an entrepreneur. And coming up to you after the event, not trying to be too clingy or like, hey, you need this and this or over salesy, but just wanted to talk with you. I was really inspired. I was like, I really have to work with them. I really would love to, because I think I can be of help, and you guys are so inspiring in everything you're doing. So it's been a great fit. I love working with you guys. It's a great collaboration.
Yeah. I would like to let's just start it out. So I think the most interesting question I think Jessica and I get to ask entrepreneurs is, how'd you get started, right? It's like, when did you wake up and realize I need to follow my own passions and I don't want to work for everyone else, right? What was the start of your journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I started, right out of school, full-time job. I did have like a freelance design studio, but I was kind of terrified to go on my own. I didn't really know any of the business aspects or clients or anything, operations. I knew creativity and design, but not all of the other stuff to actually run a business. So I actually started my career at BBDO Worldwide, working big advertisement, a lot of late nights, a lot of great projects. But we were doing a lot of big campaigns and coming up with like little tweaks on products and really pushing clients and customers to buy like the latest and greatest of the next iteration of the product. And I started to question, we're creating all of this kind of waste with the packaging, and we're really making consumers buy, which is obviously a hard thing to do when you're in design and marketing, but trying to find a better way versus convincing people to consume more. I wanted to figure out a way to convince people to consume more consciously. And so I left that and kind of went through working my way through other design roles through like Louis Dreyfus, which is a family-run company, commodities, real estate, energy, learning all I could of other aspects of sustainability versus at BBDO, it was more consumer-based market. So I kind of got out of consumer-based because I thought it was just like I'm designing stuff in the world that's just going to end up in the landfill and make people's lives feel empty. So I was like, I really wanted something that's a little bit more, driving my Northern Star and part of my like purpose and passion and design for positive change. And so I kind of still did freelance on the side, still had a full-time job, but then actually I moved to Charlotte and really took my full-time freelance business on my own, got my own clientele. I freelanced with some of the agencies in town, but no one was focused on sustainability or sustainable design. So I kind of had no choice but to really do that and go on my own. So really always still learning and growing, even to this day. I've been doing design for 24 years now, and I'm still kind of learning different aspects as sustainability and materials change, as well as different businesses and branding elements and how businesses are evolving to adapt to kind of the new markets and the new world that we live in, focusing on sustainability.
We talk about entrepreneurship as like launching a new product or launching a new business, a service. it's almost like, where's the white space? Where's the opportunity? And what I heard was an interesting story where you were looking around in the market and you were like, this is my conviction. This is what I believe with all my heart. And then you looked around and you realize no one else is doing this. And there is such a need, right? If I go to mindfulandgood.com and look at your client portfolio, there's some really cool brands out there that are flipping that consumerism model on its head or working in the regenerative space, right? Wild Hope Farm comes to mind. Our neighbors here who actually reached out to us, Good Karma Ranch alpacas. Yeah, they reached out, and they do goat yoga, and that's cool. So would love to, when you get to work with these clients and coming from where you were before, what's the difference? You get to work with a lot of entrepreneurs. I'd love to hear about how the type of entrepreneur is different in this space versus maybe even that more traditional CPG or brand space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, coming from, big ad agency, working with very, high level clients, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, obviously large budgets, lots of different iterations and concepts, a completely different ballgame than switching over to working with small startups or like startups, small businesses to medium-sized companies. Those are kind of areas that we focus on. But we love it because we can really dive in deep to kind of take their vision to life from the beginning, understanding all the aspects of their business, how their operations work, what they're really trying to do, and then really gearing up all of their brand and communications to help solve the problem that their business is trying to do for the world. So it's a lot of opportunity, working with other entrepreneurs that are very, they haven't been in it for too long. So they're really bright-eyed and diving in and excited. And it's an exciting process to get into it, which is great, kind of collaboration and kindred spirits, very innovative thinking. So we kind of get to, take their visions and bring them to life, which is really exciting. Also focused, the brands and the clients that we have worked with, we really target in really the purpose driven. So folks that have, obviously they have to make a business and drive, their profit, but really their mainstay of having a very deep purpose of driving what they're doing. Because I think at the end of the day, your purpose in being an entrepreneur and having that resilience and tenacity and to keep going even when times get tough is huge. They have to have this spirit in them to keep going. So having, working with personalities like that, and then really taking their product from this initial concept all the way to launch is really exciting, and fine tuning, figuring out, sourcing ingredients, if it's for, a certain CPG client, how they're sourcing, how they're processing, if they're co-packing, and then what eventually it's going to go into that then the consumer is going to see. So whether it's a cardboard box on a shelf, is it glass? Unfortunately, is it plastic? Plastic is still king when it comes to things, especially for small startups and stuff. They haven't been able to purchase into all of the sustainable packaging. There's a lot of compostable packaging and stuff that's now available, but really trying to help steer them into what's the best substrate and material to hold their product and then take it to market, and, figuring out who their target audience is and what type of packaging they want to see, what type of brand they want to see, really building that personality for the brand, in a holistic approach, completely from beginning to end. And then making it in a way that is sustainable for the client, that is, cost effective for them so that they can drive that profit and make more and then grow the business kind of steadily, versus with design, because you're so excited to create, you want to create everything under the sun. And sometimes it's out of scope and you're creating all these really cool things. And I think every designer goes through this, that you want to do everything under the sun. But right now, as the client's growing, they can't afford to do all that. They can't afford to do a really cool compostable seaweed made packaging because the minimum, order on that is, 25,000 per SKU. So trying to find those solutions with the client on the operations side, as well as the actual design, brand, visual side, it's very, cumbersome process, but it's very kind of endearing to dive in deep with clients, like, to go through that with them and coming out with a really great collaboration and a really great product and successful brand and product when it hits the shelf.
The fact that you go through that process with your clients, I think says a lot about how you work too, because it's not like you're just, oh, this is great design, use it, whatever. You're like, actually, can you use it? I want to make sure you're kind of investing in them, getting it going and finding solutions to actually work within their budget and timelines and all those type of things, which does add a whole nother layer of complication to the process for sure. You're not just like making like a pretty picture and being like, have fun figuring that out. There's a lot in there. And actually I feel like you're in an interesting position because you do get to meet with so many startup entrepreneurs at the very beginning of their process. It's a very early phase, I would say, the branding and graphic design stuff. And do you feel like after some experience doing that with multiple people over the years, you kind of have a sense of what brands might take off and which ones might not, just based on the concept you're seeing laid out in front of you?
Yes. So, going through trials and tribulations with lots of different levels of startups. But really, first meeting the client, making sure like the personalities mesh, that we get along. I kind of say like our relationship is like a marriage. We want to make sure that we get along. I want to be with you for the long haul. You don't have to use me for everything, but I would love to kind of grow with you and be a partner versus just an order taker. I really want to like be in the business with you. I'll be your biggest like hype woman. I will grow with you. I will not oversell, things to you. But I want to really like be in it with you. So starting with that, making sure that personality. So right off the bat, if there's somebody that I just don't mesh with, then, I know kind of to stop it before it gets in too deep. The next kind of aspect is them, going through like a brand discovery process and asking them some deep dive questions. And then also even, 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, do you have an exit plan? Like you want to do and build this, but when the times get tough, like how are you going to deal with like challenges and competition? So the startup clients that have an answer for that, or they're confident in their trajectory and they're really like driven, usually are the more successful ones than the ones that are like, well, I don't know. And the ones that play it a little bit too small. I kind of know that I'm like, I can try to help you, but you have to figure out X, Y, Z before I think you're going to be able to get there. So it's kind of like therapy, I'm like, I'm with you for the long haul, but we have to like talk through these things. Some that come to me and a little bit more timid and not confident, also giving them that confidence boost that if they think, well, I'm just going to sell at farmers markets. And I was like, well, that's great. That's a great start. That's very lucrative. You could do that. But what about retail? What's like your dream? Do you want to be on Shark Tank? Do you want to be in Whole Foods? Do you want to sell, worldwide? What's kind of that, 10,000 foot, vision? What's the dream? And it doesn't always have to be. If they want to just keep it like farmers markets, regional, you could do super successfully well that way. But knowing a little bit more of their drive of where they want to be and where they envision themselves in so many years really can, I think, make or break a business. And tell me a little bit more about where they see themselves and where they're going, and if they have potential in a future to be successful.
Have there ever been times where you thought someone, I don't know, like one way or the other, where you were just like completely wrong? You don't have to give an example specifically, but just like where you're like, oh, that caught me off guard. I didn't think that was going in that direction. Or
yes, I've learned people with a lot of degrees of PhDs and doctors and people that very smart people, a lot smarter than me, book smart people, that want to launch businesses, that have big ideas. Some of those who I thought would be really successful have not. And I think that comes to, and that could happen whether you have money, PhDs, class, whatever, it comes to your ego. So I think, building a business, everybody has ego, but really being able to step to the side and know when to hire the right people to help build your brand and business, I think is a really strong leadership ability for very successful entrepreneurs. Ones that can't get out of their own way, they just keep running in circles and are not as successful. So it doesn't, so I think anybody can, really be, as long as you're driven and stuff, I don't think you really need to have it, obviously not knocking, higher education or anything, but some of those people are just so educated in the institution, book smart, they have a hard time actually taking that to like real world settings and talking to everyday people.
Yeah, I feel like I bring that up a lot on here of like, do you have to go to college to be an entrepreneur? And I think the answer is no, obviously. Many people are extremely successful who didn't go to college. And I think the issue that you're touching on with that is it can sort of breed, especially like the higher up, like the more time you spend in school and in that mindset, you're not really in the real world. You're kind of in academia, and it can breed analysis paralysis when you try to translate that to the real world. Business
Absolutely.
and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you go to, I always hear those success stories of Wharton School. So like if you go to Wharton, most likely you're going to be successful. Although I'm sure they have people that are not. I just always hear the success stories.
Right. You'll get examples on all sides, I'm sure.
Yeah. Wharton has a really good PR department because we never hear anything bad about them.
You really don't.
Only success.
I loved your answer on how you mentioned you meet a lot of entrepreneurs. Jessica, that was a great question of like, how can you tell which ones succeed and which ones will maybe have a little bit more challenges? But like as a follow up to that, you mentioned, and I've worked with you, so I have had this like this brand worksheet to go through. But what are some of the other tools that you use that really enable entrepreneurs to come up with a clear mission and vision, or to really grow their businesses? And which ones would you recommend to anyone listening to this podcast right now who wants to start their own business, of saying like, hey, these are the table stakes that you're going to need to really start manifesting your vision out there in the world?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, going through brand discovery process. So finding, your why. What are you trying to do to change the world? What are you bringing to people? What problem are you solving for people with your product kind of mission, your brand values, your target audience, who they are, what's their persona, where do they shop, what do they watch on TV, how do they live their life, and then how are you going to reach them? So are you going to be in retailers? Are you going to sell direct to them? Are you going to do festivals? Thinking about just everything that target audience does in a day-to-day, and how are you going to reach them? Going through figuring out, what your product is, how you're going to produce it, how much. This is a big one of kind of running the numbers of cost of goods sold. So I usually give them, obviously, this brand discovery that focuses on the brand aspect, but also like, how are you going to make money? So you're solving this problem, but now have you figured out like your business operation? So have you done the whole Excel spreadsheet of like, here's all the things I'm spending on the ingredients. Here's what it costs to produce and manufacture. Here's like what packaging costs. Here's, what we're going to pay you, Rachel, for design and marketing. Here is what we need to maybe a broker fee to get into market. And then figuring out, the cost of everything, what that wholesale cost is, and then what that profitable cost is. And how many of those widgets do you need to make to then make a profit. So the brand aspect of, who, why, what you're doing, what do you want your brand to make people feel, the target audience, who's that target audience, where they're shopping, what kind of brands align with yours, like your competitors, and your dream, look, feel, everything. But then also the operation side of making sure that you're going to be making a profit, and how many things do you need to create and sell, and where do you sell them? Back to that target audience. Where are they shopping? What are they buying? How many things do you need to sell direct to consumer? And making sure that you're still making a profit. And sometimes, it's not going to be the first year. It's going to be 2 to 5 years that it's going to take to actually turn a little bit of a profit. But walking them through that so that there's some real stakes and some real things that they understand, so we can make the brand and the vision and communicate everything, really well. We're confident in that, but we want to make sure too, like, you understand your business operations and, how many things you need to do behind the scenes to then we can market it and make it profitable for you. And us knowing all of that gives us confidence that obviously, you know what you're doing. Maybe not right now, but you're going to grow to do that. We can help you through that and connect you through lots of different partners, through different startup networking groups. We tell them to get out and about, go to every kind of like Expo East, Expo West, food trade shows, any kind of like natural food if they're in, any kind of local market, Veg Fest. Really, getting out there and seeing what other brands are doing, as well as for them to start meeting people, because in anything, like, we know it's all about relationships and relationship building. So attend panels, and download and take workshops of any kind of like startup or entrepreneurial stuff, whether it's through Chamber of Commerce or kind of locally. Usually I go to a lot of things, so I invite my clients with me. Or if I see something that pertains to their market, I send it to them. So like I said, I'm diving in deep. I'm always thinking of like my clients, what fits them, and then sharing those resources from that. One good group that is helpful for a lot of startup is Startup CPG. That I do refer a lot of, startup clients to. It's a Slack community that's like 25,000 people, but they also have a lot of online courses and webinars that do help out really early stage kind of consumer packaged goods startup companies. That is one. A lot of it, through Small Business Association, local government entities. So depending on where they're located, getting involved with just like local groups, and any kind of like trade shows, specialty food, wherever they're located, kind of figuring out if there's something in their area that they can go to. And then there's a ton. I do a lot of online kind of conferences, seminars that are geared towards design or sustainability. Like I met, you, Dominic, at the Circular Charlotte Summit. So I feel like there's all of these different kind of summits, webinars, seminars throughout different cities or online that gives, entrepreneurs the education and inspiration that they need. So kind of, they need to do the work too in building those relationships. That's something that I cannot do. I can give them all the resources, but they do have to do that work of getting to know people and then figuring out, making those relationships with potential brokers or retailers, or, just developing like relationships with potential clients of who they eventually would sell to once they launch.
Yeah. Build your network. That is like, let's hammer that in. Build your network. Don't,
Yeah.
And it's all practice, right? I was at Expo West earlier this year, and from an LPK perspective, selling, brand work, right? Something very similar. And, you maybe talk to 200 people over the course of a few hours, and all you're doing is getting better, right? You're getting your pitch out, you're learning how to communicate, and you're hearing these wonderful stories. And then you start just to make connections of, oh, wow. And all of the sudden it stops feeling awkward and it starts to feel natural. And even if you're not an extrovert, It's so energizing being there because you're surrounded by people who are ready. And I do want to mention, I know that New Hope Network that launched the Expo West series just started a new one in Colorado called Newtopia for startups, right? So something else for the listeners to check out.
Yeah, that networking is very key. And also that helps with startups of doing a lot of research and development. That was another phase that I forgot to mention with the brand discovery and the figuring out cost of goods and your line items and making your widget profitable, doing research and development. So whether it's like new flavors or what flavors to launch first, really starting, I'm sure you can relate to this, Jessica, of, really doing that research development, seeing what people like, seeing what people are requesting, diving into data, whether it is going to trade shows or local events or festivals, just figuring out what the consumer trends are. And you can even do that through like really researching, social media and seeing what takes the latest trends and things on TikTok, what flavor profiles are happening, what other brands are doing, big and small brands. Like pickles had a moment. I think they're still having a moment. Right now, cucumbers are having a moment. Through different seasonality too, if you're focused on, we like to work with a lot of local, focus businesses that are based on seasonality. So figuring out those flavor profiles that no one else is doing. Hibiscus is in season right now. So figuring out all those ways of using hibiscus, whether it's, ice cream, vegan products, a non-alcoholic, something with hibiscus, but made locally. So doing that research development and relationship building, I think are really great tools from the beginning phases of, developing your startup.
I want to make sure we talk about mindful and good. And I wanted to understand what, we're talking about all of these lessons that you're teaching entrepreneurs, lessons you're learning from these entrepreneurs. And one question that comes to mind is, remind us how old is your company and what do you see as where you want to grow? What are your goals or your metrics for success, right? Where are you challenging yourself next?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always growing and learning. So I take a ton of, certifications and webinars, growing the business. But I want to say I started 24 years ago. So I launched, a freelance business even when I worked full time. So I did a lot of side projects. So I did that for the first 6 years as freelance because I did work full time. And then I took Mindful and Good out on my own. And I started, working with a lot of different diverse clientele. And now I've really focused in on kind of natural products, food and beverage, health and wellness and sustainability. And really like diving deeper down in the past few years, getting into, more adaptive reuse, regenerative agriculture, consumer packaged goods, people that are more focused on being, B Corp and purpose driven. So really kind of honing in on those type of clients, that people that really have that, purpose based and impact driven in everything they're doing. And me, as a business, figuring out how to grow the startup, entrepreneurial spirit. I do have other kind of companies that I'm involved with and I dabble in, but my day-to-day is definitely focused on, Mindful and Good. We grew last year, we do have a collaborative team that we work with. So we like to stay small and nimble. I've heard this from many colleagues that once you grow too big, all you're doing is managing and you're not actually getting to do all the creative and everything else that you launched the business originally for. So one challenge is, working on the business versus in the business. That's something that's always challenged me. But I've grown, to this collaborative team that I can outsource a lot of things to that I'm not having to manage the day-to-day, which has been really nice. Last year, we became B Corp certified. So really
Hey,
focusing
congratulations.
thank you. So focusing in on our values and then getting certified for that. So we've always been like 1% for the planet for the past, 5 or 7 years. We've done that for a while. Don't quote me on that. But B Corp, we were like, we've always wanted to do it. We went through the process last year. So that we're like on this upward trajectory to really like put those certifications in place, talk about it, educate our clients on it, and then also grow our team. So actually getting on some more full-time folks versus just collaborators is kind of our next step in growing the business. I don't ever want to grow too big, but I would like to have, a full-time folks on board, getting those schedules in place, and then bigger, kind of slightly bigger clients. We had some diverse clients, some big ones, some small ones. Everything, pandemic kind of changed a lot of things. And we really focused on a lot of, smaller to medium-sized businesses is really where we love what we love to do. But probably taking on some more clients. We're very strategic in who we work with and the number of clients we work with per year, so that we can really like dive in deep with them versus being like overbooked and under delivering. That's kind of like one of my, holy terrors when I wake up at 4 a.m. of like that I didn't perform and I failed this client. I made all these promises to them. So really trying to bring on board more people to be able to manage slightly more clients per year, still do the same work we do, stay small, boutique, nimble, but have like more full-time employees to be able to do that work and grow the business and kind of get the word out about, the importance of sustainability, people, planet, profit. I feel like that's more ingrained in everyday operations for a lot of people now, but there's still a lot of folks that need to reach that. And I think that's hard sometimes with people that are just trying to survive in business, in a startup business. When you add this layer of like sustainability, they get overwhelmed with it. But that's where we come in and we can try to make it as an easy process for them and do that for them. So kind of that service-based, like there to serve and help you through that process and integrate that into everything that we're already doing with the brand development.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because I think my follow-up question was going to be the economy, especially for brand companies and agencies and designers and consultants. It's a hard economy right now. A lot of our clients are kind of doing internal teams, or they're saying, hey, strategically, our money needs to go to a very certain project. So there's less floating around in terms of people willing to take risks. There's also less money because money is more expensive right now with interest rates. So I guess my follow-up question, which you answered a bit, was like, what is the strategy you're taking in this economic climate, and what would you recommend to other companies as they navigate it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just temporary. So like anything, emotions, feelings, which we all have.
It can get worse. Is that what you're saying, Rachel?
No, it's going to get better. I'm a very positive, glass half full. I mean, I think the past few years have been very tough. And, obviously pandemic we went through, and I feel like a lot of businesses maybe launched off of that and had this trajectory, and a lot of stuff is closing now. Obviously election year, economy, interest rates, there's a lot of layoffs, but I don't think it's going to keep going down. I think now we're going to be on this upward trajectory. I've had it though, the past few years, like you're talking about with, I put all my eggs into this like CPG basket, and then, VCs and things like that aren't funding these as much. They're funding more tech, fintech stuff, or
housing. That's another.
And resident, resident, a lot of commercial real estate, which we do, which has kind of kept us afloat. A lot of the manufacturing, unglamorous work of, manufacturing, real estate development, the back end stuff, that's kind of kept us afloat. So we've kind of diversified, but we were really thinking, CPG is going to be our bread and butter. And it's unfortunately hasn't panned out because of so many budget cuts. But I think, I think just getting through probably this year, things will probably start to shift next year. Figuring out, new budgets and stuff and changes in the economy. I see it on both sides as a business owner, how things are very tight budget wise. I mean, I've cut stuff in our own household to try to make it through and be very cautious of it. So I get it as a consumer as well. And my business operations, but we still need to do business and grow. So there is kind of that spend. And like when even like the pandemic happened and budgets were cut, this was the time for people to really dive in and kind of figuring out where their spending's going, but being very purposeful about it and precise about it. So I talk with startups in the same aspect of that, of like, and maybe it's not even branding, that when they come to me and they're like, hey, I think I need a rebrand, we're trying to do this, but our budget. And that's kind of where I walk through this process with them to really figure out, I think you actually don't need, new branding. I think your branding is okay. You possibly need to figure out your scalability, your scaling, and you need to figure out your manufacturing, maybe a co-packer, how you can, grow the business in that aspect, figuring out costs there. And then let's talk about design and marketing, because they kind of have to work together. Like we can brand you, make you look incredible, get you to market. But if you don't have the capacity to fulfill those client orders, then you're going to have a problem. And vice versa, if you are kind of have this great product and then it's not moving because you're not branding, marketing it correctly, then you just have a bunch of stale product that's sitting there. And then you're going to need to off-sell it really fast. So having those deep conversations with clients, budgets right up front, and then figuring out the best solutions for them. So as, designers, we solve problems. It's a problem of, figuring out budget and brand and everything. So kind of having that discussion early on and then finding the most, sustainable, cost-effective solution for them. I mean, it's not fun. It'd be great if everybody had like multi-million-dollar budgets and it was raining money and we could do whatever we wanted and create. And
that's why I buy lottery tickets. I'm trying to keep that dream alive.
The la world.
Yeah.
It would be so much
But
easier.
then that's the reality of business is like, yes, like with the startups too, it's like, you need to actually make a profit or at least some money. If can't just be a hobby or, just something fun, you have to make a little bit of money with this too. So,
and I feel like that's what makes the success story so much better too, because it's like we all didn't start with money pouring over us. So it's like, how do you turn nothing into something? And there's a lot of, I think I have a lot of respect for people who have achieved that. And I think it's inspiring too. So we love those stories.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have to have that drive and purpose and a strategy for the future. We've even heard and worked with some that have gotten, big money and still went bankrupt. So that's the harsh reality of business. It's business. It's not for everybody. It's not for the faint of heart. As you are both aware, it's a roller coaster ride. It just depends on who's the last man standing and who's still holding on at the end. And then that you can keep going and do it with a smile on your face and get up every morning and just keep doing it.
Yeah. The persistence, I think, is a big, big factor. It's like you touched on, like, you need a really clear vision, and we talk about that a lot too, but it's like you need that, but then you really also need that persistence to not give up. And that's, I think, where it becomes a mental game in a lot of ways. Discipline
and grit, and that like tenacity to just keep going.
Yeah. Just...
Did that answer your question, Dominic?
I thought it was a great answer. Yeah, I mean, if I was to distill it, it's it's going from, and you mentioned one of the reasons you wanted to start your own firm was to go from being an order taker to being more of a collaborative partner. And so if I'm distilling that, it's, someone may come to you for a packaging or may know you for a packaging design, but really what you're showing up as is a strategic partner, and you're helping them, as you said, like a therapist, right? Mm-hmm. What's really going on here? How do you get out of your own way and achieve your goals, right? Achieve your next level. And I think that's such an important takeaway. And I just wanted to highlight as something that I heard in your response.
Yes, thank you. Another aspect is grants and stuff for small businesses. There's a lot of those out there, big and small. So giving them access to that as a resource, if they are looking, like I said, the networking aspect in the small, like the chamber and SBA and things like that. But there's a lot of, AMX and phone companies and larger entities that do grants that aren't loans, that are just full on, here's the money, but you need to fill out the paperwork. So we do try to, hook up our clients if they are looking for funding, figuring out if it's a grant approach or figuring out if it's VC approach or figuring out if they do need to do some kind of loan aspect as they're getting their business running.
Yeah. I mean, I know that for Flora Farm, we're looking at USDA grants through the Farm Service Agency. And Jessica and I, within Some Love, are exploring grant opportunities because, it always seems like, regardless of which business I've been a part of, it's like, well, if I just had a little bit more gas in the tank, I could do this. That feeling
just to get you over that, that next level. Yeah.
I feel like that feeling never goes away, right? And that's
I feel
that's
the
the
same way.
persistence thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it never really goes away. I mean, I've been doing this for 24 years and it's still like, I just a little bit more, if I could just get past this hurdle. And then it's like, then the next hurdle, you're just still climbing the mountain.
Yeah. It's a nice metaphor. And I think, Jessica, you were highlighting too, that persistence is key.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating the way you work with your clients. I love that. I love hearing that it's such a full service situation because I don't feel like I feel like it's unique and it's a really, and I know it's a lot of work for you, but also I'm assuming it's like one of your skill sets, really, just as a human, to be able to see the full picture and really ask those questions and kind of be that therapist for them, which I think I would imagine breeds a lot of your longevity with your clients for sure, in terms of them really trusting you, and that partnership that you were alluding to at the beginning is really nice to see, like, in action and hear you talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we really like to be in with them for the long haul and be, their friend, their partner, kind of grow with them, really. And I feel like that's a good partnership. And with anything that you're doing, if you can, like, dive in deep with them and be in their head and understanding. So especially when it comes to brand and diving into that research and stuff. So really getting into your client's head and understanding everything that they're thinking and feeling. It's a very, like, empathetic approach, being sensitive to that so that you can produce the most, like, beautiful, dynamic brand, product, everything for them.
Right. And you're able to create, like, because you're in their head now, it probably just makes your job easier at the end of the day. Like, because now you're really understanding what's going to make them happy and what's going to work for their goals that they're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. And I feel if I don't understand it, I can't design for it.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So I really need to know that, or else I'm like, I don't even know where to begin to design for this. I mean, there's research, but I really need to understand it. As the brand side, but then also if I don't understand it, are consumers going to be able to, and are they going to buy your product or service or whatnot? So really breaking down the communication from them to be super digestible and understandable, to then be able to present it well in, all the different aspects of brand, and so that consumers become very relating to it as well.
Yeah.
So fun question to get us in a fun, spot. So putting on your strategist hat or your foresight hat in the context of entrepreneurs, what do you predict is going to be a big trend next, right? And we can revisit this episode in, I don't know, let's say a couple of years and see how it plays out.
Well, I mean, this has probably been, if you dive into, like, the Nielsen data and anything, if you've been to any trade show or consumer packaged goods, A lot of different seaweed materials when it comes into food products or substrates for materials, cosmetics, packaging is one area. So seaweed, mushrooms are big. Um,
You got some thunder over there.
yeah, it is.
It just
Sorry.
came from my house, so I think it's traveling
Oh, it's
south.
coming
maybe.
down here. I was
Yeah.
like, who's had it is it's raining.
Not
So
in LA.
seaweed,
Yeah.
no, of course it's always sunny in LA.
We don't get thunder. Hardly ever.
We've had some crazy summer storms.
Yeah,
So
I bet.
seaweed, mushrooms, adaptogens within products, food and beverage, a lot of non-alcoholic beverages. I mean, they have been kind of growing the past few years, but I think that's the next really big thing is more non-alcoholic beverages with adaptogens, supplements included in them. Like health and wellness craze, I still think is growing. You have the whole thing, GLP-1s and that craze of,
Like Ozempic. If the
Ozempic,
listeners need
semaglutide, tirzepatide, like all of that. But I think you're going to also have an influx of possible, naturopathic and other options available through supplements. What those are, I don't know. Like we had elderberry a few years ago that was really big. And the mushrooms, like I had mentioned, are really big. But I think you're going to probably have some more competitors out there that will come to market again, alongside those or not against them, but competitors of those that are more naturopathic. That's kind of what I see as more focused on natural product goods. Pickles had their moment. I think they're kind of still growing. I love everything pickles, so
I love pickles too.
it's one after fermented foods too. I think growing that market because of the influx of people focus on their microbiome and their gut health. So obviously prebiotics, probiotics have been popular the past few years, but I think probably more fermented foods coming mainstream versus just niche markets of going to the Asian market and getting your kimchi. I feel like kimchi is becoming more mainstay in everyday foods. It's something I've always had. I always have like fermented things in my refrigerator. I've always had kimchi.
I always eat fermented foods. Sauerkraut. I love sauerkraut. Naturally fermented pickles, like all that kind of stuff. You love it. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't
so
count.
Good for you.
It doesn't count when something goes bad in my fridge, right? That's not it. It has to be an actual product, right?
Do you taste it and then make
bubbles.
A face?
Yeah.
And then tell Sarah Catherine, hey, try this.
Yeah.
Does this smell bad to you? Let me know.
It's kind of like sparkling, is it supposed to be?
A little effervescent. Yeah. Sometimes that can be good. Sometimes my sauerkraut's not fermented enough when I buy it, and then I'll just leave it on the counter overnight.
Yeah.
And let it work it a little more, and then it'll be perfect the next day. So, yeah.
My kombucha sometimes gets a little,
Do you make your own kombucha,
feisty.
Rachel?
I do.
That's cool.
Not always, but I'll do it in big vats and stuff and make it just so we always have on hand. I go in phases. I go in like a kombucha phase for a while, then the sourdough phase. I learned the hard way. You can't actually do both of those if you're in your house at the same time. They'll kill each other off.
Oh, is that the problem I was having? Wow.
Yes. So I tried to do a sourdough. I think this was during pandemic when everybody was doing it, but I had a big SCOBY hotel and all my kombucha also in the pantry, and my starter for my sourdough baby was not going anywhere. And I was like, what am I doing? It should be all this happy yeast in the air. Happy yeast is probably another trend that we've, something in the future.
What's happy yeast?
Just yeast that's like bubbling and doing good, again, with like probiotics.
Yeah.
Living
the stuff
foods.
That's in the air that if you are doing kombucha or making a sourdough, there's stuff like, in the air that you don't even see that are just kind of these like happy bacteria that are fermenting things around us. But the kombucha did not play well with the sourdough. So I had to basically finish the kombucha, do that, and then clean everything out, move the SCOBY hotel out, and then I could do the sourdough starter and it would work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had big fermentation phases over the years. I'm not so much at the moment, but there's been I don't even remember, like the kombucha starter and the scobies and the mother and the whole thing. And then the sourdough starter. And then I was doing like naturally fermented sodas for a while, like a healthy, root beer, whatever, stuff like that. But it's like this garden of like feeding all your fermented little babies in your kitchen. And it's like so much work, but it is really good. And so it's great for your gut, which obviously, as we all know, translates to like the health of the rest of your body and your skin and like all the different things. So
your brain.
Yeah. And
your brain, your attitude, everything. So I think, as long as startup entrepreneurs have a healthy gut, they will be successful.
That's the lesson.
Definitely eat fermented foods.
And Happy Yeast is for sale. It only costs $7,000. So any entrepreneurs that have a little extra money, go ahead and grab that. Well, awesome, Rachel. Thank you so much for your time today. Final question: what? Anything that you want to share with us about new ventures, any shout outs that you want to make? Just want to make sure that we have a moment to do call outs.
Are you taking on new clients right now as well, or just?
I am. Yes, we are kind of getting a little bit tight towards the end of the year. But we are, I'll always say yes, and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Again, hiring that team and growing. But we're excited. We're working on, we're branding a new holistic wellness platform, kind of dedicated to empowering individuals to live their kind of greatest life. It provides like personalized diagnostics, wellness plans, coaching, and it has like AI integrated with it.
Whoa.
So that's kind of really cool. We're excited about that coming. And then we are working with a seaweed client that is kind of transforming kelp into kind of a low carbon chemical to use in materials, packaging, food, and cosmetics.
I have a question on seaweed. Sorry, finish what you're saying, but go ahead.
No, that's it. Those are the two we're really excited to work with. Like those are coming soon. You'll see stuff out in the world. So what were you going to say about seaweed?
No, I just, I see a lot of sea moss lately. Are you familiar with sea moss as a cosmetic thing? I don't really know exactly what it is. Is it seaweed or what is sea moss?
I have no idea. I see the Erewhon people eating the
it's all
sea
over
moss.
Erewhon. It's like sea moss, everything.
And I never really like dove into learning about it. Probably works with your probiotic and microbiome. Okay. But I haven't actually researched that at all. I was looking more into the different chemical components of kelp and being like sustainable, it's really helping like fishermen and to develop jobs. They've done it on the Northeast in Maine of helping like lobstermen and fishermen create year-round jobs in doing seaweed farming because it grows. It's super regenerative. It actually it pulls carbon. So it's kind of along with regenerative agriculture, but seaweed is having a day, and then it can be used. They've found that the breakdown of seaweed has the different like protein and chemical components that like corn has. So if you think of all the corn that's in the US diet, or fillers, or cornmeal, or cornstarch, corn
everything
syrup.
Everything has corn. Yeah.
Everything has corn. A lot of like cosmetics have corn-based products or soy-based products. So they're finding like the fundamentals of seaweed, the breakdown of those, that they can actually create things from seaweed and kind of get rid of corn or replace corn.
Oh, cool.
In that.
I never heard that.
Yeah. So it's still kind of infancy phases and scaling up, but they're doing it on basically like the Northeast, Maine aspect, and then like Alaska, like the Northwest. Really growing these seaweed farms to create these materials and chemical components that can completely kind of transform the stuff that we've relied on for, corn and soy and the not so sustainable agriculture things in our country.
I would imagine too, the seaweed would be like a healthier alternative filler than corn.
Super regenerative, super healthy. Yes, exactly. I know. Yeah. So I'm excited to kind of see where that goes as it grows, and see what they can do with it.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Amazing.
Well, I'm gonna research sea moss, find out what that stuff is.
I'm gonna too. Now that you mentioned that, I've seen it, and I'm like, do I need to
Dominic
eat
already
this?
did.
I need to
did.
put, snail stuff on my face, and I need to research sea moss.
Yeah.
Yeah, snail mucil, that's
Yeah.
big, right? And I put a CMOS article in this chat. Jessica's right. I did do research in the background because
Oh,
this is
good.
how my brain is. And Rachel,
Thank you.
the name of the company or is it part of Mindful and Good, this platform, this wellness platform? Is it its own spinoff? What is the play?
It's its own thing. It's a New York Times bestseller author that's creating it, along with a podcast and different avenues. So it's this whole wellness platform that I'm helping them with the brand aspect of it.
Oh, wonderful. And what was the name of the company? Are you allowed to share? Or do you
I want to wait,
Yes, we'll wait,
until
we'll wait.
it launches and everything. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I will share it once it is launched, though.
Well, thank you again, Rachel. Everyone go to mindfulandgood.com, check out their portfolio, reach out to Rachel. She's really nice, and she'll help you with all of your entrepreneurial needs. We just really enjoyed the conversation and look forward to catching up here soon.
Likewise. Thank you for having me on, Dominic
Yeah.
and Jessica. It was good to chat with you guys.
Thank you for being here. This was great. Enjoy the rest of your day and your week. Have a good week.
Yes, you guys
Enjoy
too.
your sea moss.
Yes, I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
go buy some sea moss.
Thanks everyone for listening to our show today. We loved this conversation. Rachel always makes me feel so positive. She's such an optimist. And I want to say, please reach out with any comments, suggestions, who you want to hear from next, and give us a ring. Also give Rachel a ring on her socials, which we'll be posting below. All right, until next time.